Can't you understand? I am a fraction, a part of a broken man.
Now on Radio 1, part 1 of the two-part documentary about the Pet Shop Boys.
We're certainly not about the truth.
The truth, we've never been about the truth.
It's basically the Neil Tennant story. I'm just an adjunct.
Of the two Pet Shop Boys, Chris is the icon, ultimately.
Well, I think Neil probably wanted fame and success to make the point to his school or whatever. It was like, ha, take that. He always mentions the fact that he didn't used to like football and it's kind of getting his own back. He was the kind that used to nick off school and go to the library and do the theatre, so it was a triumph of his type over your footballing type. What's the word you would use for that? Revenge.
I wanted to be a pop star from a very early age. Firstly, because it looked, in the 60s when I was a kid, it looked like a really exciting thing to be. Secondly, I was physically insecure and I wanted to be loved. Thirdly, I always thought I could do it.
I don't know what I've got out of it, really. I don't know. I've found the whole thing really strange, puzzling.
I don't think Chris did want to be a pop star. It just happened anyway. People often think that what we're doing is some sort of piss take when it's not. We are often unintentionally funny. We are often perceived to be ironic when we're not being ironic. People assume that we're somehow distanced and detached, whereas in fact what we're normally trying to do is communicate something that really is very, very real. And in our lives we've dealt with many difficult things in our personal lives, and they tend to be reflected in our songs.
Typical deadpan vocals. Actually, they're not deadpan at all. They're kind of charged with tons of emotion.
We've been thinking about wigs for a long time.
I liked people to think that we weren't dexterous musicians. It's one of those things you'd be embarrassed about. We're always given the impression that someone else did it, you know. You don't want to appear that you're too talented, do you?
Pet Shop Boys always react against things. You know, if there's a Brit pop explosion going on, the Pet Shop Boys are to be found singing in Spanish. We sort of can't help that.
Answering questions from fans, November 1996.
Oh, good one. Have you ever had any ghostly experiences? Emily, West London.
No.
Neither have I. Good question, then.
Right, well, the time I met Neil, I was a student at Liverpool University. I think I had quite long hair, probably a bit geeky. I was doing my year out in London, and I just moved to a really horrible little bedsit in Chelsea, which just happened to be around the corner from Neil's. I was probably a bit studenty. Knew I didn't really want to do architecture full time. I just knew that I didn't really want a normal life of working, being under stress and having no time to myself. But I didn't really think of any alternative. I've always wanted the same things, having lots of friends, partying, and being happy. But I think I strive for that too much and inevitably end up unhappy, sad and depressed and lonely. I spend a lot of my time thinking that I'm not having as good time as everyone else. So I was probably very much like that at the time. I probably thought, well, this is pretty miserable, isn't it, being stuck down here in a bedsit with sky blue and orange walls and a one-ring cooker which you could only make something like baked beans on toast on. I was 21, going nowhere.
When I first met Chris, I was 27 years old. I was living in a studio flat on the King's Road in Chelsea. I was working for ITV Books. I was doing things like the Look In Pop Annual, a series of books called Animals in Action. I finished a relationship with a girlfriend at the end of the previous year. I was musically into new wave kind of music. Elvis Costello, The Clash. Right at the same time I met Chris, suddenly smash hits came into my life. And you can look back at it now and see that it was a time of complete change. If you believed in astrology, my planets must have been all in alignment or whatever they do when your life changes.
Listening back to unfinished songs, August 1996.
Oh, this is a good track. This is a bit more like it. Guess what was number one the week we did that record? It's totally obvious. Babylon Zoo.
I'd always loved music and everything, and I used to enjoy just doodling around on the piano for hours on end and that. But I never really thought you could actually do anything with it. It's just not really an option, is it, being a pop star?
I'd always written songs since I was really young, since I was about 12 years old. I'd always written songs. I was at primary school, I wanted to write a musical, so I've been wanting to do that for a long time. I thought musically at this time, because I was 27 years old, I thought I'd missed the boat. I mean, it was just a reflex to me to write songs, really. It was just something I always did anyway.
Other people become pop stars, don't they? And other people become footballers and things like that. It's not what you do. I think I must be quite fatalistic, really, because I wasn't surprised either when it all kind of happened. It just seemed, oh, you know, this is what's going to happen. But Neil's more of a driving force anyway, so he's more likely to have kind of made something happen. I would never do that.
TFI Friday, November 1996.
You met 16 years ago.
Yeah, 1981, I think.
1981. Can you just, because I know it was in an electronic shop on the King's Road in London.
It's still there, Chelsea Records.
So who talked to who first?
Well, it wouldn't have been me.
I was going to say it was, yeah.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm not...
But he's not the most forthcoming of men, though, is he? So, I mean, you know, when you asked him, because didn't you think he's a bit dull? I'm not going to talk to him
No, I
anymore.
thought it was funny.
Did you?
I think he made some kind of joke or something.
Did you?
The first thing we talked about was, well, in my recollection of things, was all our favourite records. I know that we both really liked David Bowie. I remember we went to the pub across from Neil's flat and chatted for ages, and Neil probably first suggested writing some music together.
I mean, it always seems to me surprising that we decided to write a song together. I never quite clearly remember us actually doing it. But I had the synthesizer and Chris was fascinated by it. He just immediately started improvising something.